So it's fantastic to be here with all of you guys. And if there's any takeaway of what you have achieved in this day overall, it is that we are absolutely living, I think, in the most amazing times in world history. And sometimes that's counter-narrative when you read the news overall. And at the macro level, I think sometimes we lose track that we're living longer, we're killing each other less, we're feeding each other more. There's a rise of middle class everywhere. And at the same time, we know that a lot of other things that are going on, but this is what makes me even more excited by what I heard by today, because we now have unprecedented tools and capabilities to solve the problems that are not yet being solved fast enough or appropriately enough because of the kinds of things that you're inventing and the kinds of things that you have impact in the world overall. We've talked a lot about today this incredible ramifications that we cannot predict what the world order will look like in a year or 3 years, but we can predict with 100% certainty that by the end of the decade, 2/3 of humanity will have a supercomputer on their pocket. And this means unprecedented access not only to each other and communication, but the ability to see how we all live, to see the best ideas of what's happening. And to me, this is the kind of thing that is going to make the Arab world and other markets we're about to talk about become something that at least most of us in the West cannot even imagine what it's going to be by. And it is the earliest days. So we have only touched on in this conference the ramifications of things like blockchain and driverless cars. And I think one of the things that's often missed about the Middle East and emerging growth markets, generally speaking, is the fact that there's going to be a leapfrog societies rising everywhere. That folks around the world who never knew landlines are going to do things with not landlines and mobile devices and new capabilities that will be the global companies that Hala talked about overall. So in the midst of this, of what you know and everything else, enters Iran. And I think this is actually going to be one of the most profound things to happen in emerging markets in my lifetime, and I include even China in that overall. I've been to Iran now 2 times, and in fact, I'm hopefully, if the visa gods come together, I'll be going back, I hope, in another couple of weeks. And there's so much that I have seen there which is completely and utterly familiar to you. It's absolutely staggering how a new generation of people are finding workarounds and access to technology to do amazingly powerful things. And the amazing thing about Iran is they don't have to work around that hard. I have to tell you that over 65% of the homes in Iran now have internet access. Just to give it as a point of comparison, it's 70% here in the United States. There are issues about quality and other things, but that still is a staggering number overall. 120% mobile access, which means obviously, as is so much as in the case in Arab world and elsewhere, people have more than one SIM card or device. We have 40 million smartphones in Iran now, which was a staggering number to me, not least of which because it's illegal for iPhones to be there, but there are over 6.5 million iPhones on top of Samsung and top of HTC. And I can tell you, as we'll talk a little bit about in the panel, Xiaomi is coming big time, and so that's going to be dominant. The thing that blew me away most is a year ago I was there, and there was actually very little access to 3G. Like 1 million people out of a country of 80 million had access to 3G. And a lot of businessmen told me that it's going to roll out, and the government told me it was going to roll out in the next year. Other business people pulled me aside and said, it'll never roll out that fast. They're nervous about it. We're still going to through the nuclear deal and everything else. It'll never happen that fast. So I'm there a year later, over 20 million 3G subscribers in 1 year. So it is a staggering infrastructure which has challenges, like everything else has challenges, but it has opportunities which I think has not only amazing ramifications for what Iranians will do for Iran, but the intersection, co-authorship, and partnership in growth markets generally, and of course in the Middle East in particular, is just about as exciting as anything I've seen in my lifetime. We've got great people here who can square this in detail because they've lived it. And Yazi, I'm going to start with you right off the bat because you have outstanding knowledge not only about the ecosystem in Iran, but with Fitbit and other companies. You've worked with the best of the best in Silicon Valley here. So you've got an ability to be very specific and very hard-nosed about assessing this excitement I've just laid down about emerging markets generally, but Iran in particular. So how real is this?
I'm personally very optimistic and very excited about what's happening in Iran. And more than anything, I think one thing that is important for me is being very data-oriented and analytic person, I wanted to hold on to evidence, to data. And what's really exciting right now is that we have very early signs of success in Iran with our entrepreneurs. A company like Digicala is a good example that—
Tell them a little bit about Digicala.
It's basically Amazon for, like Amazon for Iran, and they're growing really rapidly to the point that I heard from one of their investors that Rocket Internet, which is a beast, and starting various types of companies and clone them in any region and in any country, they can compete with Digicala in Iran, and that's what makes me excited, that there are early signs of success, and success brings more success. And also one thing that I think is very unique to Iran is kind of the talent, particularly technical talent. There is an economic forum stats came out a few months ago, and Iran is actually number 3 in terms of producing high number of engineers. It's right after US, with very small actually difference. Iran is producing about 234,000 engineers per year, while US is producing 237,000 engineers per year. So that's really exciting to see. We have real technical talent to be able to build scalable businesses online. And also, another thing that I think is really important about Iran and also other countries in the region is that we all have very entrepreneurial spirit. Because our economies were more structured than some of the other parts of the world, we actually are very scrappy and entrepreneurial. So I think that actually contributes. We need to figure out things. Any parts of Iran you go to, people are creative and can start businesses. And Iran's bazaar is a good example of that. I know when I wanted to go to Harvard Business School, get my MBA, my father said, "Are you serious? You want to go to Harvard Business School to get MBA? Who would do that? Study so hard, pay so much money. You should come to bazaar in Tehran. Stay there for 6 months, and you will learn the best practices for negotiation, supply chain, how to find customers." And when I kind of think about it, it's very true. Those people are very creative. And I think that actually can infuse a lot of energy and creativity and scrappiness in these startups and in these companies, which I think is not something that you can necessarily learn. But I think we all in our countries have that, which we should take advantage of.
You know, Yassi, I was struck by something that seemed like a competitive advantage, which is about to become threatened by the opening of the markets. Because when you go there, you're incredibly, I mean, literally half the people at my hotel in Tehran were Chinese. Another quarter were probably Germans and Scandinavians. So the world is coming in a very rapid race, even pre-deal. So the good news in that is this will be a great opening experience for others. On the other hand, you know, what has been built in Iran to date has been built exclusively. Like, you guys haven't been duking it out much with Google or Facebook or Twitter. So what is that dynamic now that all this is about to rush in? How do you think about that in terms of valuing the ecosystem and what its challenges might be?
Yeah, so I actually think in that sense, you're right. The sanctions were beneficial. It makes us to be even more creative and innovative, which is something that probably was missing to this level in Iran. But I think what that brings actually is 2 things. I think although we are very strong in terms of technical skills and engineering skills, we are missing, as many other people also alluded to, kind of systematic management skills and also execution skills. So I think it's easy for these companies to start company and grow to a certain point, but actually with other companies such as Google and Amazon and bigger companies going to these regions, they actually bring some kind of systematic management skills to the region, which is really exciting. I also think the other thing that it brings is a new type of capital. I think one of the biggest challenges, particularly in Iran, I think in other parts of the region, people talked about it, is having access to funding. And I think these companies will come, they basically bring capital and know-how to the region, to the Iran, particularly, and also could acquire some of this, players that have been successful, and they can kind of conduct as part of the kind of bigger umbrella of those countries. Another thing that I think is important is the localization. For instance, like doing logistics or payments in Iran is very different than what Amazon knows here. So being able to learn that from local people, be able to take those skills that are localized, I think combination of those could be very, very powerful.
And Ronnie articulated, Fadi and others articulated that beautifully. We're going to come back to that because I actually think it's a big theme, not just about Iran, but in the Arab world. There's so much that you've done that is so remarkable. But there are 2 major commitments in your life which have blown me away. And one is this commitment to actually helping what I described before, which is ubiquitous access to technology and making sure that PCs and other capabilities are in people's hands wherever that may be. And then secondly is I use the word with a small capital, small b, and you made it as big B, is building bridges between Iran and the rest of the world, and certainly with the West, with the iBridges gathering that you fundamentally created in Berlin, which was astounding. Could you tell folks what you saw at iBridges and a little bit background on it?
Sure. I guess before I start doing this, just want to make sure that mention this, since this is the women panel. As you were saying that there were 230,000 engineers from Iran, 60% are women, which is very important. So I'm proud of that.
You should be.
So I wanted to mention this. So the iBridges, we started it first in Berkeley, September 2014, and 700 people showed up. We weren't expecting that at all. So only 10 people from Iran came. And the next one was in Berlin. 1,040 people showed up, and TechWadi was one of our main partners. So thank you. I guess at that time, TechWadi noticed that Iran is going to be part of MENA region. So we have to accept it. So it was a very successful conference for us, especially because it showed that how eager all the diaspora, either in Silicon Valley or in US or in Western countries in Europe, and the same in MENA as well. We have a group in Dubai. There were 23 countries that we all working together on making the iBridges happen in Berlin. So all of us were working every day, the regular job that we had, but after 10 o'clock in the evening, we were all working on iBridges. So it took us 9 months to make that conference happen. It was successful because 450 entrepreneurs from Iran, they came. And the level of their eagerness to learn and to connect, it was amazing. I'm hearing since this morning about the numbers, billion here, billion there. I'm coming from the social science background. For me, the number, the money, it is important, of course. But the most important thing was the network, the connection, the culture that is a new culture for all of us, especially for myself. I'm coming from the old generation. At my time, we were talking about all the time politics and all these things back home. Right now, these kids, they don't care about anything. They don't care about the politics. They don't care about the religion. The only thing is they want to be successful. They want to connect with the outside world. They want to be global. So it was very impressive for me.
It was unbelievable. You talk often, and other people at iBridges have talked often about what you call the other side of the bridge, which was touched on earlier here, but I think it's one of the most important things that is still in its nascency. Thank God for TechWadi because it does it, and that is about building the bridge back. And the diaspora here for the Arab world is unbelievable, but the diaspora here from Iran is extraordinary. And so could you talk a little bit about the opportunity that can be best unleashed in both cases?
So from day one that we wanted to start this, we didn't know myself. I didn't know that there are so many Iranians here in Silicon Valley that they are in a, with one phone call, they just jumped into it and said, we are here, we are volunteering. The whole conference, it was on the 100% volunteer. And then they started saying that we need to be mentor for these Iranian kids back home. But because of sanction, we cannot do this right now. So it was really a privilege for all of us in Silicon Valley. Myself, I'm not coming from, again, high-tech background, but knowing all these high-tech, successful high-tech Iranian diaspora, that they really worked till midnight for just making this to happen. And right now, they are planning for the next iBridge. And meanwhile, we are strategizing on how we can make the mentorship as part of the iBridge conference. We cannot do anything, but we can plan on it, and we are doing this. And in here, we had 140 people that were working on this conference, and it was amazing. I didn't know many of these people. And now we are very close friends because for the past year, we were talking to each other every single night.
You know, Hala, you articulate so beautifully earlier today the work that has been done to even build bridges within the Arab world. And it's a market at one level, and it's very individualistic another level, and there are challenges that come with that every day in terms of bringing cohesiveness. And now we have this new likely juggernaut entering into the fray. And when you think about it from the lens of what you've been doing, not just in Lebanon, but all around the region, and you see this thing happening, what does it look like from your lens?
Well, Zohre said that Iran is now part of MENA. I say welcome. I say welcome because, you know, it's a once in a lifetime, in our lifetime opportunity to have a virgin market opening, a sizable virgin market. This morning, Fadi said there are 3 markets that make MENA: Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. Iran alone is bigger than Saudi. So it's a huge opportunity to add a 4th market that would finally maybe give enough mass or critical mass to the Arab region to scale. I'm talking about tech here, about tech companies scaling in the MENA region if they are able to address the Iranian market. So I'm very, very excited about that. I had the privilege to attend iBridges Berlin. Thank you for that. I met with a lot of entrepreneurs. There are a lot of early stage entrepreneurs today. So it gives me the feeling it's the Arab region a few years back, but I'm sure they will go faster than us because I could see in them the hunger, and they have around them enough support and the technical skills and the bridge here with the Silicon Valley. I think, like, for example, small examples, when I saw this morning Ronaldo of Souk.com, I'm like, why doesn't he go after Digicala? I think that would be a great move to just enter the market now. You have huge opportunities also in the digital media before Facebook and Google enter this market, where you could make small acquisitions for advertisers, as everyone wants to be addressing the Iranian market. So I see lots of opportunities for our startups. And geographically, we're close. The population is young as in the Arab region. You mentioned penetration of smartphone. Culturally, we're close. So I find it as a very exciting opportunity. And Leap Ventures is actually looking into investing in Iran or expanding existing Arab businesses into Iran.
Is cultural differences and tension something for old people? Are we actually past that now in these worlds? Or because I can tell you in my trips, it was articulated to me often.
Yeah.
And so how do we, is that now, are we in a new era now on this?
I just hope entrepreneurs will go beyond that. There are tensions, certainly in the Arab world when you talk about Iran. I would say less so if you're Lebanese. But yes, there are some tensions. I think the economic opportunity should be looked at beyond these political hurdles. And I just hope entrepreneurs are smart enough to do that.
Having been one of the pioneers, really, truly, with this amazing shift that's happened in the Arab world, if there were 1 or 2 things you would hope for Iran from the learning that you've done, is there anything that jumps to mind that you would advise or share?
Well, I think, I'm not sure it's an advice. I think what they have for them is the size of the market. So what was difficult and was described also in this morning's panel in the Arab region is it's a fragmented market. Although we all speak one language, it's a fragmented market. But in Iran, it's one market. So they can afford to go big from day one, and don't necessarily need to look outside early on to prove their concept. So, yeah.
Yeah, so you touched on something before, and Fadi was very interested about this, and you know, businesses like e-commerce he's very excited about. Businesses that have a huge sense of locality in any of these markets tend to be a good thing. We're in this very interesting juxtaposition where pure software companies, really world-class software companies, still tend to be heavily dominated by the West. So even, let's put Iran and the Arab world aside, the Facebook of India, the LinkedIn of India, the Twitter of India is Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Now, the e-commerce juggernaut is still being duked out over. And in a way, tying, as you think about the kinds of opportunity in Iran, which at one level will be unbelievably important locally or within a broader E2E, emerging market to emerging market geography, This also will be waking up software juggernauts here in Silicon Valley who are becoming global companies as well. If you put on, knowing both these worlds very well, almost an investor hat and want to think about where great opportunity can scale and at the same time not trip where obviously very great ideation or already accomplishment from Western software will be given problems, how do you think about that balance? Because I think it's one of the huge balances about what's being unleashed going forward as we think about this.
Are you talking about the sectors particularly that
It could
Asia
be-
should focus on?
It could be sectors or it could be capabilities, whatever you think.
Yeah, I think definitely anything that is like local language related, like eventually you can imagine like anything that is content related, I think is a good opportunity for these companies to focus on. And as you mentioned, Iran is a large enough market and also different from the kind of Arab world. Like if immediately a startup wanted to start, they can for a long time focus on Iran and that particular language and then expand to Arab world and other parts of the world basically. But I think like the software, I would stay on the software, although a lot of my experience right now is on hardware. I'm working for Fitbit, and I think there's so much opportunities right now in kind of more developed countries to do hardware-related stuff, anything related to wearables, Internet of Things, robotics.
But will Fitbit own that? Or will it be a global Iranian company that can get toe-to-toe in areas like that?
Yeah, so I think actually for the hardware, although I think there's a lot of opportunity is here, I think I would recommend that startups in the region, in Iran, do not focus on hardware because it's really hard, as our CEO mentioned actually, is the black diamond of startups is a lot harder to succeed in hardware than it is on the software side. So I would say definitely focus on software, focus on things that give you competitive advantage because of localness. Even if you think about it, like e-commerce is a great example. Anything related to logistics or content is a great example. But I also could think things related to health and healthcare. Like people alluded to a kind of doctor on demands of the world for the region. Same thing could happen for Iran. Focusing on health, the problems of that region really well. Then you can connect people to doctors here, to other parts of the world. So there are ways to kind of be creative, take advantage of knowing the consumer in the region, the payment system in the region, have access to those, but can, the sky's the limit. You can kind of tap on other parts of the world. Like if you're building two-sided market, Takhfifan is another great example, which is Groupon for Iran. They're doing some really interesting things. They understand what Iranian people want, what type of kind of products and services could be appealing to them. So it's just not easy to go to be a Groupon, go to Iran and try to replicate what they have done there. So there's a lot of kind of local knowledge and that these companies could focus on. And I would say like I definitely just stay on the software side for a good period of time rather than kind of jumping on the hardware side. That is a more challenging one.
I talked to a minister in Iran who said said a lot of things that blew me away, but two in the context of what you just said. One was e-health in Iran now on a momentum in the next couple of years will be over $1 billion industry, and that by the end of the decade, maybe a little bit beyond, they're hoping that plastic will go away. That in fact everything is going to be mobile payment in the next 4 to 5 years, which seems to me is an unleashing of all sorts of innovation if in fact they deliver on the goods.
Yeah, the penetration of debit cards is really high in Iran, is about 92%. But the credit system is not as kind of established. I can see like payment system could be a huge opportunity. The banking system is pretty broken in Iran. There's a lot of opportunity to fix that. So there's a lot of sectors that you can, as an entrepreneur, focus on and have significant impact. Each of those by itself could be $1 billion opportunities, and is really easy for people to build. Like not really easy, but it's easy to build the business and move fast. And even if like foreign companies come there, they can kind of collaborate with them rather than just taking over the market very quickly.
I could spend an hour talking to you guys about where this is all going, but I promised I'll keep them back onto schedule a little bit. So what I'd love to do is give each of you last word of something for us to think of. Zora, I'll start with you, to think a little bit about if there's something that you have observed, which you think most people in the conventional narrative don't understand about Iran and understand about the opportunity and co-authorship with other growth markets, and particularly the Middle East, what would come to each of you as something that would be most exciting that you'll watch for and hopefully help implement, and these folks will help implement going forward?
So for me, I didn't know it myself. When I had to interact with the hard tech entrepreneur in Iran, because of the Pitch Fest that we were organizing at Berlin conference, one thing that I noticed, they were so eager to learn. And they were telling us all the time that if you guys seeing that whatever company that we have started is the copycats of the other companies that are successful outside, is because of the sanction, because we didn't have access to outside. So as soon as the sanction is lifted, we can do a lot. And I really believe in that because of the talent and because of the eagerness of diaspora to help them. Is amazing the number of the people, even in Silicon Valley, that they have already started to plan to give back. So it's very important.
Hala?
So maybe just a tiny announcement, although I've been talking about this for a while, so I'm just waiting for clearance to be announcing the MIT Enterprise Forum of Iran that will be plugged into the MIT Enterprise Forum of the Pan-Arab region, into the MIT Arab, I will have to rename that, startup competition. So I think ties are usually created by just knowing people on the ground, as opposed to, yeah, I want to go to Iran and find the right introduction that would take you on a trip. So I think we need to start building those ties early, especially at a young entrepreneur level. I think the early opportunities for MENA startups will be around digital marketing, e-commerce, because these are the obvious ones. But as you mentioned, the infrastructure is to be rebuilt. It's a virgin territory, so payments, all of that. So it's very, very exciting. And I think it's quite easy to find but maybe you can correct me on that, the right door to enter that market, because they are so open. Now how it happens afterwards, and because there is still some political influence in that country, so we need to be, I guess, wary of that.
Yazzie, you have the last word.
Yeah, I think just reaching out to people out there, like the entrepreneurs, incubators. If you're in a position to invest, take that chance to invest. I think those are the ways that I think that we can build the ecosystem both in Iran and in other places. So for me, it's like as people who are outside of these countries, just reaching out and help. And I already started doing that, put myself out there and said, I'm happy to help out. And I think all of us could do a lot in that sense. And it could go very far because of some of the things that you mentioned in terms of the mentorship and how these entrepreneurs can take advantage of that. Because I also think, as Zohra mentioned, these people are really hungry, really driven. They really want to make it happen. They know some of the things, but like everyone else, they don't know some of the others. And they can really take advantage of that.
I end where I began. There's no time in world history I'd rather be alive in than right now. And it's because of you three, and it's because of you guys. Go get them, and good luck. Thank you.